Well, hello everyone. Here we are back again. I'm just waiting for a second to make sure that Facebook is connecting us to a much wider audience than the two of us. And hello everyone. Perfect. How are you, Jacqueline? Welcome back. So nice to see you.
Always such a delight to see you, Claudia. I'm doing really well. I'm well. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I've seen that there is also something new on your side. I've noticed that you have started a podcast.
It has been exciting. Yes. I've teamed up with a dear friend and colleague, and we're looking forward to having a bit more of a chat of some of the themes that impact women and around motherhood and business. So we're really looking forward to that.
Fantastic. And do you want to share more about the name of the podcast, or you still want to keep it for yourself for a little bit longer?
No, I can unwrap the present with you. I can do a reveal. It's called the Sisterhood Downloads. And if you go to my Instagram, you'll find the link directly there. You can follow along with us. We're going to launch our first episode in July, sometime in July. So you'll be able to join us for that introduction to the journey and beyond.
Beautiful, because I know that there are so many women in that loves you here on this YouTube channel and Facebook group. So I'm pretty sure that they're looking forward to hear more of you, not only once a month. Sorry, I do apologize. There is a call.
And many people wanting to hear from you as well.
Clearly. All right. But today we're here to speak about toxic productivity. And if that's okay with you, Jacqueline, I'm going to give a brief introduction. I would like to share a story, and then I'm going to ask you to share words of wisdom on this topic. Is that all right?
It sounds amazing. Let's do it.
Because I know that lots of women that are watching this video, they're going to think productivity is good, right? What can be toxic about getting things done? The reality is that toxic productivity, in contrast with regular productivity, is an obsessive need to be always productive, regardless to the cost of your health, relationship, and life. And it's also called the doing bias or the action bias. And at this stage, they are also referring to it as a mental illness. And I don't know if you've heard about this before or if you agree with it, but if you constantly do something that is not improving your health, but it's actually detaching you from yourself, from the people around you, that they see as a toxic productivity as a form of depression, and also a way of coping with sadness and the needing of control, and so on and so forth. There is a story that I would like to share with you. I read it just a couple of weeks ago. I've always been a major fan of Michael Jordan. I was born in the 80s, so around the 80s and 90s, if you went to visit a friend and if they had a brother or, a boyfriend, there was always the poster of Michael Jordan somewhere hanging on the wall or the door. And I watched this movie. I think that he's one of the most talented men that has ever lived in terms of sports and basketball. He won 6 championships. So he shared this story on an interview a few weeks ago. When he was really little, like 10 to 15 years of age, I cannot recall right now, he had to pass a test. And he went to his mom after doing the test, and he said, "Mom, I got 96 out of 100. And the mom said, "What about the missing 4 points? What happened there?" This man went on, and as I said before, won the 6th world championship. As soon as he won a championship, he would spend 4 hours, between 3.5 and 4 hours, celebrating. After 4 hours, there was the cutoff because he had to go back to do the things to make sure that he would win the next championship. And he basically said that he spent all his life just trying to make up for those 4 points that he didn't achieve when he was a younger child, like a younger person. And he admitted to being one of the most depressed and miserable men on planet Earth. And I think that this story was really much connected to productivity, and especially toxic productivity. And I was so shocked about hearing this story, and it actually brought tears to my eyes, because everyone has adored this man. And we always compare to the people that are on the magazine, on the media. We rarely know what's going on behind closed curtain. So, Jacqueline, how this story resonated with you?
That is really heartbreaking, and I think it highlights something so important, that the outside doesn't equal the inside of someone's experience, and the way that we celebrate what people achieve and the relationship between productivity and perfectionism is very much intertwined, which what isn't surprising about it is that Michael Jordan is obviously a high achiever, and it's a trait that shows up in populations of people that are in elite sports or elite in their worlds, where there's a discourse around continuing to input and continuing to contribute and better yourself, and an obsessionality that comes with that. There's also a lot of obsessive compulsive traits that we see more likely in people with eating disorders that would increase someone's likelihood of toxic productivity, because it's that unsettledness in being able to be still at the end of the day, and to be able to trust that something is complete, and that we don't want to keep like poking at it and making it better and better and better. Being able to sit with the completion is really difficult for a lot of the reasons that create an eating disorder in the first place.
And there is always that destination addiction. So, for example, if you love ticking things off the list, how about that after you finish ticking things off the list today, gonna start ticking off the things off the list tomorrow? But then when it comes tomorrow, something else is gonna pop on that list. And also the destination addiction is in regards of, especially with an eating disorder, looking to make changes and looking at sitting with the feelings and behaviors, but not ever being completely happy in the present moment, and always looking for something. Oh, sorry, can you hear me, Jacqueline?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, you just disappeared for a second. As I mentioned to Jacqueline, but not to all of you watching, the connection here in Sydney today has been absolutely miserable, because we are inundated again with the most beautiful weather made of cloudy storms. But anyway, so going back to what I was saying before, yeah, it's the destination addiction, that it's the never feeling that you have done enough, that you have achieved enough, and ultimately that you're never enough, right?
Yes.
Would you agree that toxic productivity is almost a mental illness?
I think it meets all of the features of anything that's going to put a ceiling on someone's potential to fully be themselves and fully engage with life. And I think I really liked your definition earlier of standard productivity versus toxic productivity. And it's like, we're not talking about becoming passive in life as an alternative to this. It's very much being engaged with your life, and being connected to purposeful living is really important with well-being outcomes. But that starts to turn and is actually corrupted by the obsessionality that comes in the doingness, and the really, I think a lot of toxic productivity is about avoidance of what we don't want to feel when the list is done and the boxes are ticked, and we could sit still, that we create something else to do. And that can be because of, you touched on low self-worth, which sounds like the seed of Michael Jordan's experience as well. It's like inherently 4% short of perfection, you're not enough. Go and chase those missing criteria. And so the doing this and the performing becomes a habit and a pattern that someone knows as a way of life, but it's got its roots in trying to make up for something of lack. And I think a lot of us fear, whether it's something that was from earlier in our life, or we fear judgment if we sit down and watch a show that a family member might be thinking that we're being lazy, or we could be doing something else. But I also find people that really struggle with toxic productivity, there's often a difficulty feeling emotions, that it's like what you feel when you go to bed at night. And I've got people that talk to me about finding that moment really hard when they turn the lights off and they close their eyes and they try to get to sleep, and they might have to listen to something or watch something until they actually get into sleep, because that silence after a day of such heightened productivity, the silence of that intersection is overwhelming. And then we feel, maybe for the first time all day, we feel what hasn't been felt, and we are aware of the thoughts we haven't really addressed earlier in the day. And it's not uncommon sometimes the way people respond to something like grief is to go into toxic productivity, because if I just keep planning and doing and distracting, essentially, I don't have to realize what's happened and process what's gone.
Interesting question. How can someone discern if they are suffering from normal productivity or something that we are calling today toxic productivity? What are the alarm bells that normally?
Yeah. Brilliant question. I think it would come back to the intent of the action. So I have to get this done because I've got an important situation at work tomorrow, and so I do have to stay up a bit later and prepare this document. Might be reasonable, but I could just get ahead on that thing that's not due for weeks, or I could maybe resort all the washing again, or reorganize this, or things that aren't directly connected to our values would be a red flag for me. And the overall imbalance of a person's life, like we have seasons in our life and we have more or less time at different times in our life, and it's natural to expect sometimes to be busy. But if that's chronic and enduring, alarm bells, well, I start to be curious about it, and my alarm bells would go off if that person was opting out of opportunities for rest and to experience different paces and things like, because we don't get a lot of social points really in terms of often how dominantly we are perceived in our value for things like investing time in a friendship, or meditating, or relaxing in some way, or having fun, or doing something creative. We don't get a return for that in a really clear, almost like the currency of that isn't as visible. So if, again, you're coming from a place of lower self-worth and seeking that validation, the pros and cons of engaging in those different activities can be compelling towards productivity. If I can empty my email inbox versus do some knitting for half an hour and enjoy that in front of the TV, I'm going to get like this feedback and this satisfaction and this sense of achievement from doing the former. So that would be an alarm bell to me as well. And if it's really interrupting our engagement with, say, like participating in social, that maybe we're coming home early to get something done, or the rest of our family is resting, but we're cleaning the kitchen beyond what is necessary, etc.
Yeah, and it's true what you just shared with us, because when you go out for dinner with your friends, for example, you never celebrate the fact that you have written in your journal, or that you have meditated every day. You're always talking about how successful you have been at work, or if you're in a new relationship, or if you have just run a marathon. But for some reason, if you have done a meditation marathon, no one really cares. Like, people will look at you like strange, like, good for you, but still, why do we need to celebrate that? And I think that another big red flag is the inability to sit still. And even when you're sitting still in front of the TV, for example, at nighttime, you're still doing something else. So watching a movie while checking Instagram, clearing your emails, or doing something work related, I find that's another big alarm bell that normally goes off in that particular scenario. Or even looking at your weekends. How do you spend the weekends when you're not working? How much time do you think about work? Which kind of activities do you do just to, relax and recharge your batteries, compared to things that you think that needs to be done? And I think that it's time also for us to come up with a few things that could really help women to move forward if they've identified themselves like being stuck in this cycle of productivity. And the first one that comes to mind is basically understanding, discerning if things needs to get done or if it's just your brain telling you that it's absolutely necessary to do them simply because you are avoiding a specific feeling or situation, which, by the way, some women may not even be aware of that. So for some women, maybe there is some mindset work that needs to take place before getting to this point and actually questioning themselves. Is this person me? Is this person that Jacqueline and Claudia are talking about just me? Are they talking to me today? So I will say that, yeah, but step number one, discerning between, is it productive? Is it helping me? Or is actually harming my health and my relationship? What do you think, Jacqueline?
Yeah, spot on. I think that it's so normalized too. Like a lot of the things you want to talk about, like perfectionism conversation is similar, that it's heralded socially and it's normalized in our social dialect. So recognizing that this is actually something relevant, it can be the most important first step. I'd add one experiment I like to offer people is to actually diarize time, literally put in your diary, block out time for you in one form or another, whether it's having an experience that would nourish you or doing meditation, writing in your journal. Because if you work to a diary, if that is part of how you operate your life, then you have to actively override that to do something else. So if I've blocked out time for Jacqueline and to work, say 3 to 4 p.m, Jacqueline, I'm going to do some meditation, journaling, sit with myself for a little bit, and an opportunity comes in that's requesting a 3 p.m. time slot from me, I have to actively go into my journal and override myself and delete that block and put in the other commitment. So it makes it a lot more visceral, and it just creates a little pause, because otherwise we're so in the momentum of yesing to other people and taking it on. It's almost like we're not going to have a chance to notice that we're in that habit until the day is done or the year is done or the decade is done, and we reflect back on it and go, oh, those were those times where I had the chance to do something a bit differently. So I really like that one. Definitely considering your intention, like, why am I doing this? Why am I wiping down the kitchen bench again when my family is sitting there watching something together, calmly, peacefully, not distracting themselves with anything else? Why am I going through my email inbox when I really needed to go to bed half an hour ago? And it might not always be that it is toxic productivity. Maybe the intention is because my child has something on really important tomorrow and I want to organize for them so they feel supported. Like, there are times where, again, that's valid outside of the box, but just checking in so that it is self-directed. And also the third point I would add is scaling whether you are seeking worth out of that. So if there's an internal narrative, imagining people saying how much you are getting done or how impressed they are by your activity, or wow, she's the sort of person that gets up and does this early, that would be a red flag to me as well, because it's really externalizing the value, looking back at the intent, something that's coming intrinsic that you feel you need for validation, for acceptance, approval. So that would be another way of filtering the productivity from toxic productivity.
I really loved your tip about blocking me time, because unless I make that happen very consciously, I get to the end of the day where I haven't done anything for myself, and then I have the kids to look after. So basically, Claudia time goes out of the window. But it is so very true that when you block it in, you unblock it with a sense of guilt. And that's why you can bring in the curiosity, as you said, like a few minutes ago. Like, it's not about being judgmental when it comes to addressing your thoughts. It's like being curious around them. Like, I'm curious. Why have I unblocked my me time? Why have I allowed someone else to take charge of the time that I've saved for myself. And I'm curious, why am I sitting here cleaning the kitchen when the rest of the family is sitting somewhere else, just having the time of their life, basically? So these are all valuable tips that can be easily implemented on a daily basis. And I do understand that for some women, there must be some form of resistance, because the next step is going to be, okay, I have set time aside for myself and I have allowed someone else to take over. I've asked the questions, I've brought the curiosity, and I've realized that, yeah, this is toxic productivity because this is not helping me. And one question that I love to ask myself is this thought helpful and resourceful for me right now? Or is my brain going there because I've been there for so many years and decades, right? And then the next step is going to be, okay, I'm having a tough time. I'm still cannot find the me time. I have asked the questions and I'm still stuck. What can I do? So what can these women do? You have 2 minutes to answer this question, Jacqueline. I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding right now. But I know that it's basically a question that is going to require another live. But what could be the first step that you would invite someone that you know to take in order to get their life and health back?
It's a brilliant question, because it's the biggest hurdle to this whole cycle just repeating itself. And succinctly, I would say it's self-relationship, and maybe that is something we could dive into in a future conversation. But within that, I mean skills to self-soothe, skills to be self-responsive, and from that place of self-awareness. So if I'm sitting there at 9 p.m. feeling like I should be doing something more constructive and relaxing at the end of the evening, we can have a helpful conversation with ourselves about where that's coming from and what those ideas are and whether they really are truthful, and know where to take that, which I think is in part about appreciating the social input. Maybe family of origin would be relevant for some people, like Michael Jordan and his mum's message in that, and starting to appreciate that it's not just because we feel it doesn't make it true. Just because we feel guilty for not doing doesn't mean we're lazy if we don't. How do we build the threshold to be able to bridge into a different experience so that becomes a new normal and isn't threatening, so much so that we never have the opportunity to change this habit?
And I think that when it comes to learning new coping mechanism and skills to overcome toxic productivity, having someone that can work as a resounding board, is that how you say it?
Sounding board, yeah.
Yeah, and someone also to keep you accountable, it's quite paramount, because otherwise it's so very easy to get back into the same loop. And especially not for the rest of your life, obviously, but for the first very few weeks after realizing that there are some emotions that have been unmet and staying still is very uncomfortable. That's when professional help can really support someone to change their behaviors entirely.
Absolutely.
And Jacqueline, have you ever worked with anyone suffering from this toxic productivity?
Probably not many who haven't, I would say. It's so incredibly common. Yes.
Hang on a second, Jacqueline, because you just froze.
Absolutely.
Oh, hang on a second. Let's see.
Perfectionist, obsessionality.
Can you hear me, Jacqueline?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, sorry, you just disappeared for like 30 seconds. But basically, the answer to the questions, have you worked with those type of women before? Your answer was absolutely yes. And it's very connected to perfectionism. Is that correct?
Yes, people pleasing, perfectionism, low self-worth, obsessionality, activity, the whole package. Yes, very much so.
Yeah, that's very present in women suffering from eating disorders and disorder behaviors around food and training, because there is always that people-pleasing, perfectionist personality, which is all the things that you've just described, basically. Look, Jacqueline, I think that we have pushed our luck in terms of dealing with technology today, and I can see that our screens have been freezing a couple of times. So I really hope that this video was quite helpful for a few of you listening in. And I'm gonna pop in the comment section the link to join Jacqueline on her new podcast, which I'm very much looking forward to listen to. So the title is the
Sisterhood Downloads.
How did you come up with that?
Divine intervention, channeled it.
Yeah, it's honestly, I cannot wait to hear your first episodes, and I'm looking forward to tuning in. And for all of you that wants to speak with Jacqueline, she's on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, Wings and Quills or Jacqueline Byrne, and I'm gonna pop the links in the notes section anyway. Jacqueline, amazing having you back, amazing seeing you. And this half an hour just flew by. I cannot believe how much we can talk when the two of us are together. It's always so very dangerous.
It is. I can't believe it either. It's been 2 minutes, I'm sure.
I know. So I will see you next month, and I will speak to you hopefully personally before then. And bye for now, and bye to all of you watching us today. Thank you.